Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling and Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus reports, and this is Ben and Barry on football.
Hello out there, this is Ben Dickerson, your co-host, and we are ready to talk about what's going on in the world of football.
Ben, before we start in the world of football, let's just acknowledge that we are in basketball playoff time.
Yes,
And it's one of the fun things that you have when you don't have football. You know, at least you got the high level of some basketball going on. So what do you think? You're a Sixer fan.
Yeah, this is actually a really hot time in the world of sports, a hot time of year. You've got Major League Baseball in full swing. You have NBA playoffs. You have the NHL playoffs. If anybody out there is into hockey, you got some key boxing matches here and there. You even got some MMA matches going on, and football is just revving up. So, yeah, this is a good time of year.
I was watching the second game between the Sixers and the Hawks. At the end of the first game, I remember saying it looked like the Sixers found out what level of energy, I guess I'm going to say, for lack of a better term, that they needed in order to handle them guys in the second half of the first game, because they made a furious comeback. Came up a little short, made a furious comeback. And it looked like they really came out with that same level of energy in the second game and really, jumped out to a nice lead, But the question was, could they keep it going, through four quarters? And by the end of the first half, the lead was only 2. So I figured it's going to be an interesting game. But it's interesting as far as Joel Embiid is going to let it be interesting, because it doesn't seem like they have any answers for him at all.
Yeah, I think I said that before this series even began, that the one thing we know for sure is they have no answer for Joel. They did seem to figure out what level of enthusiasm and focus they would have to get off to a good start in this game. And they did that in the first quarter, and then looked like a little malaise kind of fell over them. They weren't able to hold on to a substantial lead. And by halftime, they were up or down by 2. The good thing was that over the course of the first half, and even over the course of the fourth quarter of the first game and the first half of the second game, they realized that they had some advantages over these guys, and they just stuck with it. I think Doc Rivers did a masterful job of working his rotation, getting guys in, limiting the rotation, managing people's minutes, and then taking a flyer on Shake Milton, who looked like somebody got up in his face and said, dude, you might get one more shot at this, or you're going to lose all your minutes to Tyrese Maxey. And he came out on fire. So that was a bit of a surprise, probably for everybody, including him. Okay.
It was for me. It was. I'm like, okay, who fired you up, dude? Coming down, was it the end of the first quarter or something? And he dropped this 3 from damn near half court.
Dude, he scored 14 points in 14 minutes.
Yeah, mainly threes.
14 points in 14 minutes. Bottom of the net threes. I think he had a steal. He had another defensive play. And he had a big assist to somebody, Tobias or somebody. I mean, you couldn't find anybody except probably his relatives that would have been mad if he never got in another game this year. And I'm sure when they put him in, people were like, oh, man, Shaq. And then he just came out. He was on fire.
It was amazing.
I think he's going to do it again. But guess what? They won that game. And I think they'll finish these guys off in the next couple.
Okay, all right. Well, there's a lot of good basketball going on. We're not going to get too deep into basketball because it's a lot going on in terms of football also. All right, Benny, so the first thing I want to jump on real quick is this big news with Julio. We talked about some of those free agents and some of the things that were going to happen after June 2nd. So this was kind of the big hit that happened. And what made it particularly interesting, I think, was the initial reporting on it was that Julio was basically traded for draft picks. And they weren't first round draft picks either, like 3 draft picks. And they really didn't talk about the money too much and what happened with the money. But I did take a look to see what happened with the money. And according to Sports Illustrated, Albert Breer reported that the Falcons are not picking up any of Jones's contract for 2021. I can make that a little bit more visible for you, hopefully. Let's see if I did it right. Yeah, here it is. Okay. All right. Can you see that better?
Yes.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Not picking up any of his contract for 2021, meaning that the Titans inherit it in full. That's $15 million for 2021, which made it a $23 million cap hit. Now, I looked at Tennessee's, and I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but I was like, they don't have all that cap space, right? And it says it right here. They had an estimated $5.2 million in cap space. So what they was going to have to do was adjust a current player's contract. And it looked like that current player was Ryan Tannehill, with a restructured contract was going to give them about $20 million in cap space. It's funny, in the age of Aaron Rodgers being pissed off about not being consulted, I wonder how much Ryan Tannehill was pre-consulted. I didn't hear any complaints, didn't hear anything like that. But that just seemed to be a trade that made it a big assumption.
Well, I'll say this. I don't know that they needed to consult with him. I mean, it was pretty clear that after the great season that Corey Davis had last year, and then they lose him in free agency, that they needed somebody on the other side to complement A.J. Brown. And once this thing started to develop, if they went to Tannehill and said, hey, listen, we got a chance to get Julio Jones, what the heck is the guy going to say? And then if they say, guess what? We got a chance to get Julio Jones, but we're going to need you to restructure your contract so that we can pay him. What the heck's the guy going to say?
Well, I mean, what he's going to say is no.
Why? Why would he say no?
It doesn't make football sense. But what I'm saying is, in terms of the type of respect that Aaron Rodgers is talking about, being consulted and everything, I would think that they would have talked to him in advance and said, look, we have an opportunity to get, how do you feel about that? Would you work with us? And if he says, yeah, it's all go. And that you have his full positive.
Aaron Rodgers is looking for something a little bit different and a little bit more. Aaron Rodgers wants them to come to him and say, this is who's out there. Who do you like? This is who's out there. Who do you think fits our offense the best? Should we get a slot receiver or another wide guy? That's the kind of stuff Aaron Rodgers is looking for. When he knocks on the door and says, hey, I want to talk to you. I want to see if we have enough draft capital or whatever that we can make a move for this guy right here. I'd really love to have him on our team. Tannehill don't have none of that. That's what Rodgers is looking for. And it sounds like a lot. But guess what? Tom Brady has it.
Yeah, we've heard that. I've heard that conversation, especially relative to Tom Brady. But I don't know. I just, wondered, and we don't actually know. That might have actually happened to some degree. But it doesn't seem as if it affected things in a detrimental way. So that's always good. I mean, either Ryan Tannehill was just easy to get along with, and they pretty much knew, But just to walk up to somebody and say, we need to get $20 million off of our cap space, so we need to come to you to make all the changes. That's a big move. That's a big move. All right.
I don't think it's that big a move.
You don't think it's that big a move?
No.
Okay.
First of all, the veteran player has been in the league already. So he's already signed 1 or 2 contracts. So he's made a lot of money. Okay. They're not saying we are going to pay you less so we can pay Julio more. They're restructuring the contract so that he gets all his money. Some of it's just deferred. He's going to get paid.
Okay. All right. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. We just have you don't think it's a big deal. I don't know if it is a big deal because, again, they might have already had an understanding or they might have already had a relationship. And so they knew that it wouldn't be problematic. It just so happens that, to me, to come to somebody, and it's not like they did it across 2 or 3 different players or anything. They had basically one player that they restructured. Huh?
That's usually the way it happens.
Well,
they go to the guy that makes the most money. You'll see it'll happen to Mahomes. It'll happen to Mahomes within the next 3 years. I guarantee it.
Uh-oh. Where's the Charles Barkley guarantee button?
I know. I wish I had one of them with them.
Oh, a guarantee.
I guarantee it'll happen to Mahomes within 3 years.
Within 3 years. Mr. Mahomes, we need some assistance along the offensive line. Can we restructure your $500 million contract? Certainly.
Exactly what's going to happen. Just like it did with Tannehill.
Just like it did with Tannehill.
They didn't bring Julio in and then say, oh, by the way, we need you to restructure your contract. They went to him and said, listen, before we do this, we got to be able to pay the guy. If you restructure your contract like this, you'll get your money like this instead of like this, and you give us $20 million more in cap space, and we can make this move.
Well, that's what I was talking about.
Let's go.
That's all I was saying.
Well, that's all.
That would have been the wonderful thing to do. I don't know if they did it.
No. Where you upset me was when you correlated that with Aaron Rodgers. It's 2 completely different situations. That's not even said.
You say they're completely different, but I think they both focus around the word respect. Aaron Rodgers wants it. Everybody deserves it, even Ryan Tannehill, and that's all I was really kind of talking about. And that's where I was bridging.
That's a necessity. There was no way they were going to pull off this trade the way that they pulled it off without having the okay from him to be able to do that so they could pay him. They had to come to him. That's not respect. That's a necessity.
Yeah, but to come to him,
is looking for, if you had never mentioned Aaron Rodgers' name, we'd be talking about something else right now.
To come to him beforehand. Not just come to him beforehand.
They had to come to him. That's not
okay,
respect.
Great. That's what we're talking about.
That's not respect. That's a necessity. There's only one way we can get this guy. We need you to restructure your contract. Are you willing to do it? Yes or no? If he said no, Julio Jones would not be on the Titans right now. He said yes. So Julio Jones is on the Titans. That's not respect necessarily. They had to do that. Nobody else makes enough money for them to be able to do that to get him on the team. It's different. It's completely 180 from Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, let's leave that there. What I want to move to next, Ben, is something that I'm not hearing in the networks at all. Eric Reed, who famously knelt with Colin Kaepernick and was also sort of kicked to the curb a little bit, but he was able to get picked up where Colin wasn't, was talking about race norming. And what happened, we found out in the lawsuit that had to do with the settlements for brain injuries, was that when it was coming time to pay out the settlements, that they were using cognitive skill measurements to determine how damaged you were, the amount of damage you were. So let's say that, well, I normally, when on any cognitive test, score 100, right? Then I have a brain injury, and now on that same test, I score 30. So I've dropped 70 points. So that really indicates serious injury. And then that lawsuit, that the amount that you get was relative to that amount of injury. So race norming is where in the settlement process, when it came time to determining how much injury there was, the NFL used race norming, which then looked at the cognitive skill levels of Black people versus, we'll say, white people, or we'll say the general population. I'm going to say white. They said whites here. And because the lower number, because Black people actually have been testing lower on those cognitive tests, and that's something I'll show you in a minute, they use those lower norms. So then the amount of damage was reduced. So instead of it going from here to here, it only went from here to here. So then your settlement is that much smaller. Did I kind of make sense there?
You kind of make sense. You obviously know more about this than I do, but just from the little that I thought I knew and from your explanation, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed for the NFL for doing something like that. That's horrible, bro. That's disgusting. I don't care if they took every white player and every Black player and gave them all the same exact test, and every Black player tested less than every white player. I don't care. If I get a brain injury from playing this game and I'm trying to make a settlement and I'm due some compensation, I should get the same compensation as the other person. Screw that. Because guess what? And this might sound crazy. I'm about to say something crazy. Okay? Is it possible that you can look at this two ways? If my cognitive test score is lower than yours, so I drop 30 points where you drop 50 points, does that mean I already wasn't as smart as you? Or does that mean that your injury was worse than mine? Or does that mean that my brain handled the injury better than yours? Which of those does that mean?
Well, first off,
so you can't say a Black person is not as smart as a white person, therefore the white person should get more money because the damage was more severe because they went from being smart to being, really damaged, where the Black person wasn't that smart to begin with. Basically, that's what race norming is saying. Is that correct? That sucks.
The interesting thing here.
That sucks.
The interesting thing is that the concept of this normalization actually was introduced by the federal government and was part of that whole affirmative action thing.
Of course it was.
So then, because in actuality, and I looked it up, what you're looking at here is an article, The Black-White Test Score Gap. Now, this was written a few years back. This is in the archive pages of the New York Times. And African Americans scored lower than European Americans on vocabulary, reading, and mathematical tests, as well as on tests that claim to measure scholastic aptitude and intelligence. I remember reading in the book by Dr. Kunjufu Kwanzaa, The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, that he talked about Black boys testing on par with every other group up to about fourth grade. He called it the fourth grade syndrome. He said, and after that, our test scores vary lower, on the lower end of the racial, of the different races. We scored lower on those tests. And they're bringing this point up and they're trying to figure out why. But the why right now is not where I want to dig into, just the fact that that is a number that is out there. And so the interesting thing, and that's what the point that Mr. Reed was bringing up, was that this was done to offset racism, and then somehow they switched it around and used it as a racist tool, you know? But when you think about it, it kind of almost, if it made sense on the affirmative action piece, is it that much more egregious to have used it in this piece? That's a question. So Benny, let's take a quick look here. This is from Yahoo Sports, talking about this particular situation. The NFL vows to halt practice of using lower cognitive baseline for Black players and brain injury claims. And so one of the things that was interesting is that it does mention the former NFL players Najee Davenport and Kevin Henry, who filed the lawsuit. And the other interesting thing is that this lawsuit, there was one gentleman's name that came up here in the lawsuit, in which they, as a part of this lawsuit, they had accepted this concept of race norming as a part of the settlement. And there was a gentleman here named, last name of Seeger. I'm looking for his, Christopher Seeger, okay, is acting, is the player representative for the people in this settlement, representing about 20,000 retired NFL players in the brain injury settlement. So this is a large number of people who are going to be affected by this. Ultimately, he sort of supported the concept, and now he's saying that he's sorry for the pain this episode has caused Black former players and their families.
Is he Black?
I don't know. So now they have a new evaluation plan, the NFL, and the norms are going to be overseen by 2 women and 3 Black doctors on a panel, and they're going to propose a new testing regime. But it was very interesting. I think what interested me most about this was simply the fact that I had to go back and I had to look at where we stood relative to the facts of this. So what we were looking at, Ben, is, like I said, an archived version of a New York Times article that's attempting to explain the difference in the scores. You know, it's funny, I actually have something that I posted on my Facebook page this week, and it said basically that genetic research has shown us that we are 99 and like 0.99% identical. And that 1.01% has nothing to do with race or anything like that. Is, you know, so we're genetically identical, but for some reason we tend as Black people to not test as well and to test lower on these cognitive scores. And like I said, this was being used during the time when they were attempting to help Black people get jobs and things of that nature, affirmative action. So they would use race norming to make your test scores look better, because rather than comparing them to the higher norms. They compared it to the lower norms, so your test score looked better. But that got changed around with the NFL, and now what the NFL is saying is, okay, if you had a brain injury and you had a reduction in your cognitive capabilities, should we measure that reduction from the standardized white score or the standardized black score? So we kind of took it when it was helping us, but now it's not helping us anymore, and it looks really, really bad. And I feel like it's bad. I think the NFL finally said, in this environment that we're in, we need to try to fix that. But there is an issue, and like I said, Dr. Kunjufu Kwanzaa stated that after the 4th grade, our test scores diverge from the white children, and after the 4th grade. So there's something going on. It was being used against us by the NFL, but it no longer is. And it should mean that when they go back and revisit the settlements that were reduced, because when they brought the norm down, the deficit seemed smaller. So that settlement was smaller. Now that they bring it back up and measure it against the standard, that differential should be paid back to them. But this is a story, like I said, you listen to the NFL channel, you listen to ESPN. I really haven't heard much on the news about this.
The news has plenty more to talk about. You bring this on, things are going to get even crazier than they already are. First of all, I was unaware of this, I'm sorry to say. And now that I'm aware of it, from what I'm hearing, somebody dropped the ball. Somebody either wasn't informed that there was a possibility that something like this could happen as far as the discrepancies between the settlements because of some cognitive tests that were taken by some study group or something that had nothing to do with the specific people with the brain injuries. But as soon as you start saying things like that, I'm saying, whoa, wait, oh, stop. No, that's no good. You can't base my brain injury from playing this game on some test scores that a group of people took in the 4th grade or the 6th grade or the 8th grade. No, it's not going to happen. And just the fact that what you mentioned about that doctor who said that there was a divergence after 4th grade, let's look at the way children are taught in predominantly Black schools as opposed to predominantly white schools. This is too easy. Somebody dropped the ball. Somebody let this slide. And
I would say, Benny, that it's
that this was okay, and now all of a sudden it's not okay. This is not no all of a sudden thing. Somebody let this slide.
Well, the gentleman Seeger, who represented all 20,000 of those people in the settlement,
he's apologizing, isn't he?
He's apologizing now.
Okay.
Like I said, the conundrum is that when it helps, it's one thing, and when it hurts, it's another thing. I'm about as
when the test scores are used for one thing, it's one thing, and when the test scores are used for another thing, it's another thing.
Well, that was Eric Reed's point, that it should not have been used in that manner.
I agree with him 100%.
But again, it was not without some level of scientific precedent, and so that's the interesting. To me, the interesting conundrum of this particular situation. I'm glad to see that it's being, redone, that they're revisiting this, that they're going to correct this and put everybody on a normal, standardization in terms of the measurement of their deficiencies. That should help out. All right, Mr. Dickerson, I want to give you a minute.
Well, I got one more thing to say.
Uh-oh.
Did you see the movie Blue Chips?
I'm sorry?
Did you see the movie Blue Chips? Pretty sure it came out like in the late 90s or the early 2000s. The great philosopher Leon Boudreaux, one of his famous lines in the movie is, the SATs are culturally biased. I think he spoke for me and a lot of other people out there. Okay, I agree 100%. Neon
Well,
boots up.
you know, the interesting thing as far as that is concerned is that for those black children who are knocking the SAT out of the park, it shows that within their educational experience, that cultural bias can be overcome big time.
Yes, that's
And if
exactly
it's
what it
not
should.
happening either in the school or at home, because I
Correct.
know with my kids, I did not depend on just what they learned in school.
Right.
I can tell you, it's very interesting.
But that doesn't mean it's okay, though.
Well, see, this is the problem. Nothing's perfect. There's bias built into everything, whether we want to or not, just because we're human and we are inherently biased. So that becomes a challenge, you know, and I see it play out all over the world between different cultures. In the United States, we have the particular black-white attention that goes on because of our history. So I see it play out there, but it happens everywhere. And again, if you go back and take some opportunity to read that New York Times article, you'll see that the article was about how to fix that problem and the challenge of fixing the problem. So number one, it acknowledged the problem, and number two, it was talking about ways to fix it. And that's what we have to do. That is the bigger picture. You know, whatever that divergence is, we need to get that up here so that our children are testing at the norms of their Caucasian counterparts. So that's what's the bigger picture here, and that we really have to focus on. So I'm glad to see the NFL slowly. Ben, you and I pointed out so many times things that we felt was inherently racist in the NFL. So we know that situation, even when it came down to the support of the former president, we know we knew what was there, especially as you got out to the teams themselves and to the team owners.
Correct.
You know, because there's only one black team president in the 100-year history of the NFL. And he just got the job with Washington like last year.
Right.
So we saw that happen, and we've talked about that. We've been on that. All right. Ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to give you a minute to talk about the loss of your former coach, Jim Fassel.
Yeah, you know, it's always a sad day when a well-known coach, player, owner, whatever, passes away. It's a sad day when anybody passes away, obviously, for their family and friends and what have you. Being a Giants fan, I remember Jim Fassel. I remember when he was the head coach. I believe he was a coordinator first, and then he got the head coach job. He was a coordinator with a few teams. I'm not going to say he was one of the greatest coaches we ever had or anything like that, but I remember pretty clearly back in 2000. Yes, back in 2000. Somewhere along the line in the season, he's famous for this speech, and you've either seen it on TV or you can find it on YouTube. Somewhere during the season, there seemed to come into question whether or not the Giants were going to make the playoffs. And he gave a famous speech, and he used words like, put the crosshairs on me, point the laser at me. I guarantee we're going to make the playoffs. This team is going to make the playoffs. I'm all in. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that he was saying. And I was so happy and proud to hear him talk like that in response to that question for his team and my team, okay? And that season, not only did they make the playoffs, they actually won the NFC East. They did make the playoffs, and they, in fact, made it to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they lost to Ray Lewis and the Baltimore Ravens that season. But to just think back that there was, in fact, a question as to whether that team would make the Super Bowl, and they ended up finishing 12-4, winning the division and stomping through the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl with Kerry Collins at quarterback, of all people. Unbelievable. Okay, so yeah, I love that team. That was the People want to talk about Eli's teams beating the Patriots and how there's some kind of fluke and how there's no way those teams would. That team, that Giants team was an overachieving team as far as I'm concerned. He got the most, he squeezed every little bit of juice out of them boys. And I thought they had a chance to win the game. I really did. Freaking Trent Dilfer had the game of his life, and it was incredible. But c'est la vie.
71 years old, man. That ain't that old.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a stressful game, bro. I don't know. I can't. What do you want me to say?
That's wild. That's wild. Okay. I wanted to give you a chance to, you know, to give your words on that. All right. Maybe it'll make you feel better, Benny.
I know. This is a very upsetting show, man. Jim Fassel's down. I got culturally biased tests and guys getting cheated on their compensation for their brain injuries. What's next?
Well, what's next is the NFL wants to offer you some cannabis to make you feel better.
Here we go. Here we go. I feel better already.
$1 million, and you know it's funny because they have not let up in terms of, you know, you can't test positive, you know, and you still get the same issues.
Yeah.
But they're looking at it now. They're looking at it, and you know something, it's becoming an issue across corporate America because as the states legalize it, you have situations where it's legal, but you're being punished if you happen to pass or fail a test. You know, we both worked for the phone company, and I remember somebody saying, one of my friends that worked in HR, 30% of the applicants don't pass the test.
Right.
They don't even get past the drug test.
Right.
Right then and there. So, you know, that's a problem nation. Like it's probably going to be worldwide because a lot of places, you know, were like that. They had those type of corporate policies in place. But yeah, NFL's ready to take a look at it, study it, see how it works out, you know, and then maybe allow some level of use of that. So
yeah, right. They'll drag their feet good and long on that one.
You're not betting much on that.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's not going to ever happen, but I don't see this being at the top of the list.
They have to do something. I mean, I think there's at least 20 states now that have legalized, you know, some level, either medical or recreational.
Okay.
And, you know, we don't have, there's not an NFL franchise in Canada per se, but I can't imagine how this is affecting the CFL. I don't know if they're doing the same.
Well, you know what? That just reminded me of something, and I don't remember seeing something on our page about it. It's possible that there was, but that just triggered something in my mind. They are also trying to get rid of Toradol. Toradol is a pain medication that a large number of NFL players have been using as a legal substance for pain. Guys are getting shots before games of Toradol for decades. And for whatever reason, they're ready to stop Toradol. Okay. So now these two things kind of come.
They're considered an opioid?
I would assume that it would have to be, yeah. I mean, I can look up and see exactly what it is, but yeah, it's got to be something. It's a pain reliever. It's not even a pain reliever. It masks pain. Guys with lingering injuries, it's like, you know, I got an ankle. I can play, but I'm not going to be at my best. But if I take this shot, you're not going to know I'm hurt. It's one of those kind of things.
Okay.
So if you take Toradol away, maybe CBD coming in is the next best thing. So yeah, okay. Maybe that'll make them pick up the pace on this thing.
Okay, all right. Opioids is a problem. I don't know if that's an opioid. We'll have to find out more about that. But that's the way that the NFL seems to be leaning. All right. Who's my favorite NFL egghead?
Miss Breland, right?
Cynthia Frelund.
Frelund. I'm sorry, I messed up her name.
Frelund. Frelund. She, and you know, I had to show this, Benny, because it reminds me of us. Okay, so I would be playing the part of the egghead Cynthia Frelund. You're going to be playing the part. You would be playing the part of the two NFL Hall of Famers in the page. Let's play this real quick.
This offseason to complement that great defense and carry them to actually win the division again. I know it hasn't happened since 2000 or something crazy like that. Back-to-back winners in the NFC East. But when you have a guy like Antonio Gibson, who kind of came out of nowhere, we weren't expecting him to be so great. Of course, Terry McLaurin, you have the ability to get those first downs on offense. And by running the ball and then having a good defensive front and being able to stop the pass, that's one of the best formulas for predicting for success, especially early. So when I look to see in this division, when you got a guy like Chase Young going into his second season, it's going to be really hard to pass on this defense. And then when they can run, they can control the clock. That's a really good formula for success.
Yeah, and it's been 16 seasons, like you alluded to, since the team in the NFC East repeated. And I give all the props to the defense. The defense played their butts off last year. Even in the second half of the season, only giving up 18.5 points, but it still wasn't enough, to carry them deep into the playoffs. In this league, I don't care how great a defense is, you got to be able to generate points and put points on the board. And I think they did make changes offensively. And bringing in Ryan Fitzpatrick, I get it, but everybody knows what he is, and his skill set is limited. So I don't look for him to take them over the hump and make them have a huge jump in what we saw last year. Gibson being healthy, that helps McLaurin, that helps in Brown and all those guys. But I just think the teams in that division got better offensively and will generate more points, which will put more pressure on their defense.
Excuse me, what was the Washington football team's record last year? I'm just curious. 7-9. 7-9. Right. So you're talking about they didn't win 10, 11 games last year. The bar is 7-9. To me, I'm looking at the only team in that division, maybe two teams that have the potential to win more than 10 games. That's the Cowboys and that's the Giants. So, and to Willie's point, it is so stressful for a team to rely on defense only and play this kind of control ball and kind of keep you under 18 points and try to win games that way. Yeah, you can win games. You can win 70 games, and that's where they're going to end up this year at 7 games. They're not winning the division this year. It's just not going to happen.
All right. I'm not.
First of all, I'm watching his face the whole time she's talking and the whole time my man's talking. He was busting at the seams. His turn to talk. He's like, wait. What was their record last year?
Oh
my God.
Cynthia.
That was beautiful.
Dang, I'm going to send you a hearty heart something. Because they just, she had stats and algorithms and all of that stuff going for them. They're like, get that stuff out of here. Oh my goodness.
First of all, she said way more than she should have in defense of the Washington football team's defense being good enough to help them win the division again. I don't think she did mention the offense. She did mention Fitzpatrick. She mentioned their ability to run the ball, things of that nature. So yeah, if you put all that together and the defense is as good as or possibly better than they were, yeah, maybe they could win it again. And I think all TD heard was the defense can help them win it. He said they're going to get them 7 and 10 again. That's where they can get them. That's exactly where they're going to get them.
I felt so sorry.
They got them 7 and 10.
I did. I felt
funny.
All right, Cynthia, send you a heart, dear. I'm really, they just mistreated you big time.
I think those guys on that network, everybody's got their role. Okay, everybody's got their expertise. They're on their own specific programs and all that. And she does come off a little like an egghead. She does. She's a
But
cute.
she acknowledges that. She says it herself.
Right. But some of the things that she says, I don't want to say they're over their heads, but it's just like what's really big in baseball, and it's getting big in football too. Everybody's starting to hire these analytics guys. And the football guys and the analytics guys are not always seeing eye to eye. And now we're seeing it on television also. The football guys, which is mostly what you're going to get from your ex-players, are not seeing eye to eye with the analytics guys, like Cynthia, you know? And there's some tension there. It's good tension because we get to see the good and bad from each side. You know what I mean? But there is some tension there. That was funny though. He was like, he's like, is it my turn yet?
Is it my turn? Can I tell one of them? Oh my goodness. And actually, and I didn't show the end of it, but she tried to throw a little something at the end of it, and they just smacked that down like, oh, don't even try it, you know. And I was like, oh, that hurt me. I mean, cruel. So, okay, Cynthia, you can handle it. She's in there with the big boys and she knows it. All right. Wanted to mention, again, have an opportunity to talk about the Philly Bowl. I didn't share this particular picture last time, I don't believe. But our friend Blade Brown did post this, and I'm sharing the Philly Bowl. Registration open now through July 31st. 8 men and women, please forward all payments via Cash App or Zelle. So he's got all the Cash App and Zelle numbers and says to exclude your team name and division. And same thing for 7-man. So he's got all of that information. Doesn't have a phone number on here. Like if you had a question, you want to pick up the phone and give him a call or an email address. But I guess maybe all of these payment things you can message on. I don't know because I don't know.
Message him on Facebook.
Oh, just message him on Facebook.
Any questions you have, you can go under there right on Facebook.
Okay, yeah, I guess if you saw this on Facebook, you can message him on Facebook. All right, that makes sense. Old guys messing around with this stuff. All right, here we go. So that was that. All right, Benny. So before we wrap up, any last things you want to cover?
Just because I brought it up, the Toradol thing, I just wanted to let people know that the actual name of it is Ketorolac. Ketorolac, Ketorolac. The brand name is Toradol. It is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. That's why it's legal. That's why it's not a banned substance on the NFL banned substance list. It's non-steroidal. However, it is an anti-inflammatory. It is extremely strong. People do develop a dependency for it. And it has some pretty bad side effects that I don't even want to get into. Is the normal, kidney stuff and all that stuff. So it's not good for you. All right. Anti-inflammatories, even over the counter stuff like Advil and Aleve, if you take them long enough or if you abuse them, they will start to eat away at the lining of your stomach and cause you all kinds of problems. So I understand why they're trying to get Toradol toned down or eliminated as something that they want people in the NFL to use or players in the NFL to use. But again, if you link that with the study on the CBDs and all, which is also for pain relief, you might really have something. So I guess they're going to work on that. I'll try to keep an eye out for it.
All right. And as much as we talked about Jordan Love, it just happened to come across my phone from the Bleacher Report.
Yes. What did it say?
Jordan Love says he's 100% ready to go week 1. He said, I was brought here to play quarterback, so I'll definitely be ready week one. So Jordan Love said you can mess around if you want.
So two guys that come to my head, three guys that come to my head real fast when I think about Packers fans is your son, Christopher Mitchell, Clay Brown, who we just got finished talking about,
Oh, he's a Packer fan.
and Wyatt Mattcastle,
Oh no, why?
his homie, who you also know. These
Shout
guys,
out to all y'all.
they're Packer fans. Now, I'm not going to say nothing bad about the Packers. They were a couple plays away from making the Super Bowl last year. I'm not saying nothing. All I'm going to say is just remember they traded up to get him. He's been on the team. This is his second season. So unless he's been hiding in the closet for a couple of years, okay, he's still having the same accuracy issues that he had that they knew about when they drafted him. To this point, he has never even ascended to backup quarterback status. So when people talking about giving him a chance, this is his first chance. No, it's not his first chance. He's okay. Last year we had the pandemic, no OTAs, no training camp. But before that, he had OTAs, he had training camp. He has OTAs, training camp again. Okay, this guy can't get to backup quarterback status. And now the starting job drops in his lap. What the heck else is he going to say? But I'm ready week one.
We shall see how ready he will be. All right. Everything you said, duly noted, duly noted. All right. Final comments?
Oh, yeah. The other comment I had was Malik Jackson, defensive back, plays for the Denver Broncos now. Used to play for the Houston Texans. Report came out today that he talks to Deshaun Watson all the time. And Deshaun pleaded with him to go to the Broncos and tell them, I want to play for Denver. Get me to Denver.
Deshaun in Denver,
Heard it
eh?
here first. Unless you saw something I didn't see, you heard it here first.
First I've heard that. And I guess Denver's a place that has what, 2 quarterbacks right now?
Yeah, they got Teddy and they got Drew Lock.
So if they brought Deshaun, they don't need him right away. And assuming there's going to be some level of NFL level of discipline.
Well, right. Obviously, the NFL is going to do something. He's going to be suspended for X number of games, no doubt.
They wouldn't need him right away. So that could be a place for him. Okay. I want to start singing There's a Place for Us.
No, don't.
Okay.
Don't sing.
What do you got?
All I got is go Knowles.